Am I the a-hole for telling my husband I'm not going to tell my ex-brother-in-law to stop spoiling our daughters? My ex-Di, 44 female, divorced when our daughters, Stacy 17 female and Emily 14 female, were young. About a year after the divorce, he passed away. My ex was paying child support, but that stopped the day he died. The girls inherited their father's estate, but since he was fresh into his career, it wasn't much. Things could have been rough as a single mother, but his brother stepped into his shoes. They took the girls on the weekends and basically bought the girls anything they needed, from clothing to school supplies, and bought our groceries. They also indulged the girls' every whim. Stacy loved horses when she was little, so Uncle John paid for her lessons and riding fees. Emily thought she wanted to play the piano, so Uncle Jeff paid for her lessons and bought her a piano. When the girls grew out of those phases and got interested in something else, their uncles were there ready to indulge them. I tried talking to the uncles about not spoiling my girls, but they said that their nieces needed to explore their own interests, and those explorations will help their brain developments. I disagree, but was not in a financial situation to push too hard because they were paying so much for the girls. I was basically responsible for only the rent. I later remarried to a wonderful man who brought 2 kids into the family. We had 1 more kid together, and things are good for the most part. However, kids are smart, so my daughter's step and half-siblings started to notice their sisters having more experiences and things than they do. My husband didn't like the situation, and we had some arguments about it over the years. Things came to a boiling point recently when we were discussing how to pay for our 2 oldest kids' colleges, Stacy and her stepbrother Rick, 18 male. Both are good students, and while they haven't gotten their acceptance letters, I have no doubt they'll get into good schools. My husband and I make enough money to live a middle-class lifestyle with 5 kids, but not enough to put them through college. The reality is that they'll have to take out school loans. We talked to both of them about loans, and this is when I found out Stacy had already talked to her uncles, and they're paying for her tuition and cost of living wherever she wants to go. This floored us and made my husband extremely mad. He got red and started to scream how it's not fair Stacy and Emily will get to go to expensive colleges and graduate with no loans, while our other kids will have to go to state schools and take out loans. He wanted me to call John and Jeff to tell them to stop spoiling the girls. On one hand, I agree 100% with my husband that is not fair to my other kids, but on the other hand, I can't hold my daughters back from something so wonderful. In the end, I told my husband I'm not going to tell my ex-brother-in-law to stop spoiling our daughters. Was I wrong to tell him that? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not a hole. Your daughter shouldn't miss out from their paternal relatives just because your husband and the other children might be super jealous. Those other kids have something your oldest girls don't. Their dad. You'd be a gigantic a-hole if you were anything besides grateful for the generosity of your former husband's brothers towards your oldest children. Your daughters will never ever forgive you if you sabotage their chance to graduate without debt. Nor should they. That would be an incredibly cruel and spiteful thing to do to your children. And ironically, your husband's bitterness is making him short-sighted about the other kids' well-being. Having your girls' uncles assume the financial burden for their living expenses will free you up to help the other kids where you can. Finally, is it normal for your husband to get red and scream about financial stress or the realities of a blended family? The substance of his demands, that you sabotage your kids' opportunities, is unacceptable itself. But the way he's expressing himself is also creating an atmosphere of fear and distrust. Personally, I wouldn't consider him a wonderful man until he agrees to therapy to figure out how to cope with his frustrations without harming his family. The truth is, there's not going to be very much for the mom to do. The daughter is 17 and will select whatever college she wants to go to. I'm assuming she'll be soon 18. At the end of the day, if she chooses a college and her uncles pay for it, there's not going to be anything OP can do about it. Not the a-hole for telling your husband that, but it's not really spoiling them. They've stepped up to be the father their brother couldn't be. Not the a-hole. It's not fair. It's not fair that a grown man is having a temper tantrum. It's not fair as putting this on you. But most of all, it's not fair that he sees the girls as having luxury when really it's compensating for the loss of their father. I'm sure you'd all trade that money in a heartbeat to bring him back. It's not just the husband. Keep in mind that OP calls it spoiling. She's an a-hole for thinking that all these years. Now for the update. Thank you all for reading my post and answering my question. Things have gone downhill and I'm now crushed. I was at work And without my knowledge, my husband called John and yelled at him to mind his own business, told him we don't want their money and to stay out of our lives. My husband then went and yelled at the girls as they packed their bags and as they were leaving for their uncles. When I got home, my husband wanted to call the police to report them as runaways, but I talked him out of it. I went over to John's house, and his wife led me to the kitchen where we stood in silence watching John holding my girls while they cried. For a minute, I pictured their father holding them. Stacy and Emily refused to talk to me when they walked past me on their way upstairs to their room. John and I had a long conversation about the whole situation. He basically told me he's doing what his brother couldn't, and both me and my husband can go to hell if we don't like it. He said the girls should stay with him and his family until things calm down, and I agreed. So this is where we are for now. Also, to answer some common questions, 1. My husband makes less money than I do, so he's been unable to save up college tuition. 2. His ex is still in the picture and have visitation rights. She makes less money than him, so have nothing saved up, much less tuition. Next story. Am I the a-hole for defending my husband after a prank went horribly wrong? My husband, Jaden, 26, loves jokes and pranks and stuff. I'll admit I'm not one for them and find most of them dumb, but our daughter Lucy, 5, loves them. They basically do a bunch of stupid pranks to each other. And to be fair, Jaden does keep it harmless. Last month, we got some realistic-looking spider toys with other decorations. Since we got them, Jaden and Lucy have basically taken turns putting them around the house to scare each other or me. I honestly find it annoying, but the two of them love it. Lucy does usually get scared, but when she realizes what it is, she laughs and finds it funny or tells her dad off. It's actually adorable when she tells him off though. And Jaden always pretends he's scared, even when she gives it away beforehand by giggling and watching him. So about 2 weeks ago, Jaden said it to fall on her when she opened her toy box in the playroom. Lucy didn't open it, and apparently he forgot about it. Later that week we had my family over, including my brother Leon, and my nieces, Tara 3 and Zoe 6, over. Zoe was badly bitten by a spider when she was younger, even had to go to the hospital. Since then, she's deathly afraid of them. I would go as far as to call it a phobia. The kids went to play and the spiders fell on them. Zoe completely freaked out and just melted down. We came down and saw what happened. Jaden did apologize and tried to cheer her up, but Leon was furious. He basically accused us of doing it on purpose and that we should know better, and just called us a-holes. We did apologize and explain that it wasn't meant for Zoe, but my brother did not listen to him at all. Leon left early with my sister-in-law and nieces, and the whole night was kind of ruined. I've tried to talk to him after, but Leon is still pretty angry with us. It's been a week and he's still acting like we tried to murder Zoe. I've tried explaining again that it was an accident and mistake, but he basically thinks it's too convenient a mistake, and that if it is, Jaden is still an a-hole for being so immature, and I'm an a-hole for defending him. So now he basically refuses to see us unless Jaden is banned, which is ridiculous. I do feel bad that it went so wrong, and I understand that it was a horrible mistake, but it wasn't meant to happen. It was meant to be for Lucy, who likes these stupid pranks. I think Leon's overreacting and he thinks I just don't really care about my niece. Not the a-hole. You've apologized and explained what happened. If he still wants to be mad, then leave him to it. Yeah, that's true, but I would rather him come around. I would like to have my nieces around, and my husband does love all the kids. Him being banned isn't great in any way. I'm sorry, but pranks go bad sometimes. It sucks, but that's just the way it is. Those that prank other people risk alienating those who hate pranks or who are hurt by the prank. Your husband and daughter need to learn this lesson. It may take years to heal this relationship if it ever does. That is life. This isn't really a prank gone wrong though. It was Opie's own home that relatives were visiting. They just happened to have spider toys around. I get a phobia, but when you go to someone's house, you can't expect them to clear away everything you're afraid of. The bottom line is that it's sad she was scared, but it's no one's fault, and the brother just needs to get over himself and maybe work with the child on their fear to try to make it easier for her. Not stay whole in any way. It was a set of unfortunate circumstances, but nothing ill-intended for anyone. And I don't think pranks mean cruel intentions either, or that a prank automatically means cruelty or ill-intended, whether or not parties are in agreement. Hopefully Leon gets over it for the sake of his child, because I think he's making the phobia worse for the kid by acting this way. Not the a-hole. Your husband and daughter do these silly little japes as a bonding thing, And really, hiding a toy spider is so tame in comparison to what I expected when I saw the prank in the title. It's unfortunate Denise happened upon it, but stuff like that happens, and her dad is definitely overreacting. He doesn't get to dictate your family dynamic, and he doesn't get to push such ultimatums on your family either. I definitely agree. While it's dumb, they love it, and it helps them have fun. I know Jaden really ramped it up with her during the lockdowns and helped them. I do wish he hadn't forgot and we avoided this. But I agree Leon is being too much. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not going to my sister's birthday party because she refused to apologize for ruining my reputation? I, female 28, have a younger sister, Jody, female 23. So, Jody is a single mom. She has a daughter, female 6. I frequently help her out by picking up my niece from school and babysitting for a few hours for free so that Jody can work. Jody lives with our parents and a boyfriend, male 26, who she's been seeing for a couple of months. In early October, at one point, Jody accused me of using the family computer in our parents' home to go on gambling websites and signing up with our mom's debit card while I was babysitting. I told Jody that's not true at all and asked her why on earth she would think that. Jody explained that money was disappearing from our mom's bank account and that she checked the computer's browser history and that gambling websites came up. To be honest, I was kind of offended that Jody would think I'd do something like that. I've never had a gambling problem and I've never stolen from anyone. I told Jody that that's awful, but that it wasn't me who did it. She didn't believe me and went and told a load of our extended family that I was apparently stealing our mom's money to go on gambling websites. And now they all think I'm a horrible person. And many of them have blocked me on Facebook. Anyway, the next week Jody got back in touch with me. She said that she found a gambling website on her boyfriend's phone and connected the dots. And he admitted that it was him who was stealing our mom's money and going on gambling websites. However, Jody refused to apologize to me for jumping to conclusions and basically ruining my reputation with our extended family. Sure, I never speak to them anyway, but it's still a terrible reputation to have, especially when it's undeserved. Jody said that it's my own fault, because apparently, I acted guilty and said that I got too defensive when she accused me. Later in October was Jody's birthday and she had a big party with our extended family. I decided to give Jody her gifts a couple of days before, but refused to go to the party. I didn't want to go because I didn't want to deal with all the questions and judgment, and I was still really angry at Jody for not even apologizing for what she did. My parents are understanding, but Jody said I'm an a-hole for not attending her party and that if I'm going to be that way, then I shouldn't bother being part of the family, and accused me of being petty. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. If Jody and her boyfriend are still together and part of the family, then everyone but you is an a-hole. They are still together, but her boyfriend is now in therapy and going to gambling addiction support groups. I would divorce my husband without hesitation if he stole from my parents like that, but I suppose it's a step in the right direction. Not the a-hole. Your sister sure is, and possibly your parents. Honestly, I would go either low contact or no contact with your sister. She is sure quick to blame you for something you didn't do. I wonder what else she can blame you for. Oh, and then she is pretty much kicking you out of your family? What makes her in charge? Question: do your parents know that you didn't do this? If so, haven't they stuck up for you? You said that they are understanding. I'm assuming as to why you didn't go to your sister's birthday party, yet they don't have you back at all? Couldn't they reach out to those extended family members and set them straight? Jody said I'm an a-hole for not attending her party and that if I'm going to be that way, then I shouldn't bother being a part of the family. Oh, and they're okay with your sister pretty much kicking you out of your family? My parents know I didn't do it. I tried to reason with Jody before she announced it to our extended family, but she didn't listen to them. They didn't want to try to persuade our relatives otherwise without Jody confirming it wasn't true to them, because they were worried it was going to make me look worse, and like they're enabling my fictional gambling addiction. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my ex-husband's son that my daughter is not his sister? My ex-husband's son, Carl, was born during the course of our marriage, and I was in a vulnerable space, so it didn't make sense for me to leave. Carl's mother got institutionalized a few months after he was born, and my ex got full custody. Now, I wasn't a mom to him at all, just a responsible adult who cooked meals for him, kept him safe, and looked after him when he was sick. I finally left my situation when Carl was 3, and I still babysit Carl sometimes because I'm the only one he feels comfortable with other than his own daddy. Now, after struggling with infertility for years, I had a surprise baby with my friend Will. It was a shock for both of us, but we decided to embrace the gift and co-parent together. Will is my best friend, and his son Aiden, 5 years old, is a doting big brother to my daughter, now 7 months old. The other day, I was babysitting Carl for a few hours. With the kids, Carl and Aiden got into a fight over my daughter. Carl told Aiden that my daughter was his sister and not Aiden's. I gently explained to him that even though he was not my daughter's big brother, he could definitely be her buddy. He was inconsolable, and I had to tell him that Aiden was indeed her big brother. My ex is furious with me for telling him that my daughter isn't his sister. He thinks that my comments were harsh and inappropriate for a 5-year-old. But I think that my comments were okay. I don't want to confuse a little boy and create expectations and disappointments down the line. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. The only way this child could have come up with the idea that a babysitter's baby was his sister is if dad was drilling that idea into his head. Not the a-hole. He isn't her brother. Set that boundary now. It's foolish for his father to say otherwise when that simply isn't the fact. Don't allow him to lie to his son. Perhaps work on seeing the boy less. He should be with his family anyway. I'm trying to set that boundary. I have a lot of empathy for the little boy and I care about him. Will and I are on the same page regarding this issue, but my ex refuses to see my reason. I find it odd that you're still talking to your ex, but I digress. You need to set a clearer boundary and cut off the child, or you will continue to have issues with him thinking he's closer to your family than he actually is. I don't talk to my ex. I just babysit Carl when my ex can't arrange childcare. I do it because he's a little kid who needs a responsible adult caring for him while his father isn't around. Am I the a-hole for exposing my cousin's creepy husband to my entire family? I, 22, female, met my cousin's husband, 24 female and 26 male, last July for their wedding. They live several states away, so in addition to meeting him for the first time, it was also the first time I had seen my cousin in a few years. I instantly got a bad vibe from him, and he made several comments that rubbed me the wrong way. He told me I seemed like a wild child and said he would bet I'm a bad girl at my college. Since meeting him, he has followed me on Instagram and sporadically sends me reels, which I don't open, and comments odd things on my posts like, "Looking good, cousin." He even DM'd me once, "Hey, I'll be in your state this weekend on business, lol," which I never opened either. All of this definitely creeped me out, but I don't feel like I could say anything about it because my cousin and I aren't close, and I've always felt like she looks down on me because she is a devout Christian and I'm not. Fast forward to this week, one of those fake accounts on Instagram popped up with some of my pictures asking for money for private pictures. The bio was in broken English. The pictures were poorly cropped screenshots of my 2 most recent posts, and the Cash App was a random string of numbers and letters. The account just looked very fake, and many of my friends sent it to me and reported the account. Of course, the one person who apparently fell for it was my cousin's husband. I then got a very long, nasty DM from my cousin telling me she had been very tolerant of my sinful lifestyle, whatever that means. But this time, it had gone too far. She said she didn't care that we were family, and so long as I was posing a threat to her marriage, I was no longer welcome in their lives. I calmly and politely responded that this account was not me, and that I had already reported the account to Instagram to be taken down, and I apologized for the apparent disruption to her day. She responded that she didn't believe me and said she pities me for having such low self-esteem and would keep me in her prayers. I lost it at this point. I called her stupid for falling for an account that was so obviously fake and said that her husband was such a blatant creep. It was embarrassing she even married him. I sent screenshots of the months of DMs from him that I never responded to and concluded by saying, "If your marriage is so easily threatened, get a divorce. Don't take your insecurities out on me." Shortly after, I got angry phone calls from my mom and my grandma saying my cousin made an honest mistake and that my response was cruel and unjustified. Apparently, my cousin showed everyone our messages and is humiliated by what I said. My mom is worried our relationship with that side of the family is permanently damaged, and now I may not be welcome at future family gatherings because my grandmama doesn't want the drama. I really don't feel like my response was out of line, but since no one else agrees with me, I'm not sure. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. And no one is saying anything about how the husband tried to get pictures of you or tried to hit you up. Not the a-hole, and good riddance. I had a feeling he only told my cousin because he tried to cash app the account and got nothing. Could be wrong though. Just say something like, her husband has been harassing me for months. I didn't tell anyone except her. She's the one spreading it around. I'm disappointed but not exactly surprised that he fell for an internet scam trying to get private photos of me. If she doesn't want to be humiliated, she should tell her husband to stop humiliating her. I will also welcome an apology from them anytime. Anyone who asks me to apologize to her condones his inappropriate behavior and will no longer have a relationship with me. Thanks. But he can't possibly be at fault or in the wrong because he is an honest, devout Christian man. He just succumbed to the evil temptations of women. But he is sorry and he asked for forgiveness. And that makes everything he did completely okay and justifiable. Now, that little harlot of an OP, she dared to have social media accounts that were scammed. See? She's the real sinful, nasty one in the scenario. Because she must be casting a temptation spell over her poor cousin's husband's eyes. And that is literally the mentality behind a cousin and her husband sort of thinking. Not the a-hole. Your cousin started the drama by being gullible and dumb, and was a total a-hole to you. She deserves to be called on it, and she will be much better off knowing what her husband is. Then she shared that her husband is a thirsty hornball and says that she's embarrassed. I hope he kept it between the two of them. Cousin embarrassed herself. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to buy my fiancé gaming laptop for a few grand after he told me to find a real job? My fiancé, male 37, and I, female 30, have started living together 6 months ago. I own a house and he moved in with me. I run online business from home which allows me to live rather comfortably. A month after moving in, he quit his job saying how much he hated it, and that is going to try and do Twitch streaming for a living. I'm all for following your passion, so I was supportive, although surprised at the turn of events. I'm in financial position to support us both, but it felt off. Anyway, nothing happened with his Twitch channel. Sure, he's gaming all day, but hasn't bothered to even try and create an account. He just games for pleasure. It's been 7 months. I've had conversations with him suggesting he finds work, but he keeps telling me that I'm unsupportive and he needs time. He wanted us to buy a bigger house together, but I said that I'm fine with my current one, and that since he doesn't have a job, I don't want to get a mortgage and be left with paying everything. And he told me that if I found a real job, maybe I wouldn't have financial problems. We had a massive argument that night. Now, he's been hinting at needing a new gaming laptop which costs a few grand, and I've been ignoring it, so he asked outright for me to buy it for his birthday. I told him no, that my fake job doesn't cover new laptops, and he got really angry with me, telling me I'm selfish and ruining his career. Granted, I can afford it to buy it, but he really hurt me saying my business is not a real job despite me working myself off. Am I the a-hole for not buying him new laptop? You sound intelligent. Is the D that good for all that BS? Not the a-hole. Yeah, I was wondering what he brings to the relationship other than entitlement and laziness. OP, not the a-hole. He's taking advantage of you. Yeah, somehow running an online business that provides for the both of them isn't a real job, but starting a gaming career when you're pushing 40 is totally viable. Not the a-hole, but curious as to why you are referring to him as your fiancé and not your ex. It felt off because it is. He showed you exactly who he is. Please believe him and move on. And instead of him worrying about what's in your pockets, he needs to be worried about the fact that nothing is in his. A partner makes deposits, not constant withdrawals. Cut the cord. Not the a-hole. Wow. So he saw you make money with your own business and decided you can be his sugar mama while he follows his dream of being a professional gamer. Yeah, you know what? No. You have a real job. He has no job. And now he's going through some early midlife crisis trying to be some edgy famous gamer. Sorry, but he sounds like he's 19. He'll be 40 soon. He needs a real job, not you. He's not even trying to be a professional gamer. If he doesn't have a streaming account, all he's doing is just gaming. He's being a professional slob. He's being a leech is what he's being. Why do smart women buy this crap? I'll never understand. Pull your weight or GTFO. I'm not your mother/ATM. Sunk costs. They're engaged and sounds like they were before he moved in. Even smart people get taken advantage of, and many people get stuck on fixing things that can't be fixed because they're so far into it and don't want to throw it away, failing to see the other person already has. I'm selfish and ruining his career. LMAO. What career? Not stay home. I'm a straight woman, but can I be your new boyfriend? You sound like you're carrying all the weight here, and instead of being happy for you, or even feeling lucky and grateful for being able to just fool around for 7 months and have zero consequences, this dude has become spoiled. Does he do chores around the house at least, or show some form of appreciation? Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for wanting to go somewhere while my wife is almost due? Now, I fully understand how the title sounds, and I've seen posts like this from the wife's point of view. But please hear me out. My wife is really close to giving birth, and we are both super excited to welcome our baby girl into this world. However, the issue is the fact that my 92-year-old grandfather is sick and will most likely pass on in the next week or so. He has been one of the kindest, best, and coolest people I've known. And he had a huge hand in raising me, so I want to fly over there in a couple of days to say goodbye and attend his funeral. My wife feels that this isn't as important than seeing the birth of my daughter should she go into labor while I'm gone. And while I know that the birth is extremely important, but I really want to say goodbye, and this can't wait. So am I the a-hole? Edit. Some of you ask when she's due, and that isn't for around 2 weeks. What I'm thinking of doing now is to take the car this evening. It's a 5-hour drive. Say goodbye tomorrow and come home in the afternoon. I will Zoom for the funeral. Sorry, but you're the a-hole. I empathize with your situation. I just lost my grandmother and I have also given birth. Your wife needs you for support. It's not about watching the baby being born. It's about being there for your wife during a potentially deadly medical event. Given how wonderful your grandfather is, I'm sure he would understand. This she'll push a tiny human out of her. Seem like is the first on top of that. She'll be terrified, in pain, and will want a person she can trust deeply while facing a long, painful, and potentially deadly labor. I get why it's important to you, but if your grandfather is a kind person, I think he would call you mad to even think to let your wife alone. You should video call him and ask him how he feel about that and what he want. You're not the a-hole, but neither is your wife. Try to put yourself in her shoes. How would you feel if the situation was reversed? It's not an easy choice. I'm really sad that you're put in this situation, but for me, your wife should always come first. Even more when it's about the birth of your baby girl. Good luck, Opie. Sincerely. No a-holes here. Don't wait a couple of days. Fly there now. Visit him while he's still well enough to recognize you and fly right home. Don't stay for the funeral. Life is more important than death. You've got a baby coming. People will understand. And those that won't aren't worth your time. That's what I plan to do. Thanks. You need a contingency plan. Babies do come early. Baby could come now and would actually not be considered early at all. Your wife has non-zero chance of serious complications, trauma, and even death during delivery, as does your child. If she goes into labor while you are there, what is the plan for you to safely get back? No, driving as quickly as you think you safely can to 5 hours back is not a great choice. You being in a hospital after a car accident also means not being there. I do think seeing your grandfather is important, but you need to know exactly what to do if things go sideways ahead of time. And your wife needs the reassurance of what the plan is as well. I was gonna say, if the due date is 2 weeks away, then that could happen any day now, really. Know a few babies who popped up early. I feel for you, Opie. It's a hard situation, but I don't think you'd forgive yourself if something went wrong with the wife either. Update 1. Hi guys. Thanks for the support on this post. You are all right. My wife is the most important person. I took today off and started driving to my grandfather's town around 2.5 hours ago. My wife is at home with my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law and her best friend live 5 minutes away from her, so she's fine. She was really happy about this compromise and gave me her go-ahead since she knows how close I was to my grandpa. I'm at a rest stop for lunch right now, and the plan is to get there around 5 in the evening, talk to my grandfather and say goodbye to him, then drive back home and be there around 12 a.m. I was actually speaking to my wife and mother-in-law, and they said it would be really nice if my grandfather picked out my daughter's name as a sort of connection to him for her after he passes on. Thanks. Update 2. I talked to my grandfather. It was super emotional to say the least. But it seemed like he really enjoyed it, as did I. I asked him about naming my daughter, and though he refused and said it wasn't his place at first, he eventually gave us our baby girl's name, Madeline Rose, after my grandma and great-grandma respectively. I'm going back home now, but it seems like my grandpa's going to go pretty soon. I'm glad I got to say goodbye at least. Thanks. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling an intern at my husband's work a little boy? My 32 female husband, 38 male, is high enough in the company that he works at that he has his own secretary and staff. It is common for me to show up at the office to drop stuff off or go get lunch with him. Recently, I have noticed a new intern, Jack, 22 male. I personally don't think he likes me, but that didn't bother me until today. I went to go drop off some papers for my husband today. It was supposed to be a quick in and out. I have his schedule, so I knew he wasn't in a meeting or anything. In fact, it was his hour lunch break. So I go up the secretary desk and Jack is sitting there. No big deal. I bet he was being trained or just covering for today. I tell him I have some papers to drop off that he left at home. Jack looks at me and says he can take them. I tell him I have to give them to my husband personally since they are important. He tells me no. I give him a look and says it's his lunch break. He is not busy. Jack then tells me to sit down, girl. I was shocked and asked what he said. Same thing. Sit down, girl. My temper is thin at this point, and I called him a little boy that thinks he has power since he is sitting at the front desk when he isn't even a full-time employee. He looked shocked and got all red. And then go in the back, knock on the office door, and there is my husband doing nothing. I leave and Jack wasn't looking at me. I told this story to my friend and she told me he was just doing his job and I was a jerk. So am I the a-hole? I don't want to bring it up to my husband. He can get protective at times. Info. Your wording suggests, but I want to confirm. You told the intern you are married to your husband, right? And or does the intern know that you are married with your husband and are not a stranger? Separately, is this office setting especially secure, like defense work or other civil service requiring confidentiality/security? I said that I am dropping off paperwork for my husband. Husband and I have been to the office enough time that his staff knows who I am. The security is strict, but I have a pass that allows me to get to my husband's office. It even says family member pass on it. Not day home. The intern had the audacity to tell his boss's wife to sit down, girl? He shouldn't have said that to anyone, let alone you. But you being his boss's wife just makes it way worse. You should absolutely tell your husband. If the kid gets fired, it is 100% his own fault. I don't think it does make it worse. Opie isn't any more important than anyone else, though clearly she thinks she is. But not the a-hole because he shouldn't be addressing anyone like that. I don't think it makes it worse from a morality or being a decent person standpoint. But it's definitely worse for him, if all he was worried about was his job security. Don't call your boss's wife a girl in a dismissive tone. If you want to avoid getting fired, don't call any adult woman a girl, especially in a dismissive tone, if you want to avoid being an a-hole. Not the a-hole. I am often flabbergasted at friends' crazy reactions when stories like this pop up. This kid was not just doing his job. He was being rude and condescending and is likely misogynistic. Who refers to anyone as girl? I check in with your husband, Opie, but I think you handled it perfectly. Not only was he rude and condescending, he was asking for papers that he is not allowed to handle, which is literally failing at his job. He deserves to be formally reprimanded. So lovely of Opie's friends, who don't know anything about this person's job, to assume that he was being competent while Opie was being unreasonable. Am I the a-hole for not paying any more towards our daughter's wedding after she cut pieces off her mother's wedding dress for her own? Original post. My wife made her wedding dress with her mother. It's very sentimental to her and she was very proud of it. It was simple but freaking gorgeous. She has always said she would love for our kids to wear her dress at their wedding. We had 3 daughters, 34, 30, 25, and 1 son, 28. My wife made it known that the dress was not to be altered, except to be taken in/let out so it could be kept and reworn. Our youngest daughter didn't wear it. Our daughter-in-law wore it for their reception and our son held it up against him for some pre-wedding bridal pictures so he wasn't left out. He totally rocked it. Oldest daughter wore it for her wedding. We've offered some financial contributions to all our children towards either school, a wedding, or a house down payment. Our daughter Olivia has asked for help paying for her wedding. The wedding is in the beginning of August. A few months ago, Olivia asked my wife if she could use the dress for her wedding, and my wife gave her the dress so Olivia could get it fitted with plenty of time. Tuesday, Olivia asked me to go with her to pay some vendors. One of the stops was the tailor shop for a final fitting and paid a seamstress. Olivia was really nervous, and I figured it was just usual pre-wedding jitters and excitement. The dress Olivia came out in was not at all her mother's dress. It was a completely different dress with parts of her mother's gown added to it. She took the straps, the sash, the train, and the embroidered top skirt and had it added to this new dress. I was befuddled for a bit and then asked what the heck this was. Olivia's reasoning was that she was the last of our kids to get married, and there wasn't anyone else to wear it, and she made sure to instruct they keep the original dress to be returned to her. I told her that's not the same. She knows it, and the dress was never hers to do with what she wanted. I asked the seamstress for the rest of my wife's dress, and had Olivia tell my wife in person what she had done. My wife was devastated. I have since canceled the payments I made that day and told her I won't be paying another cent to her wedding. She and her fiancé can figure it out. Our youngest daughter thinks I've gone overboard, knowing Olivia planned her wedding with our help in mind, and without it she can't finish paying for everything. Olivia's future in-laws also agreed with that. They can't afford to help and suggested I should pay, and then we just go low contact with Olivia. I've told them both that Olivia took something irreplaceable from her mother for her own vanity. I know we originally offered to help with the wedding, but I think Olivia's actions warrant canceling that offer. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. That was hugely disrespectful to your wife. The dress didn't even belong to your daughter. If they can't afford a big wedding without your help, then they can downsize the wedding. Exactly. It doesn't matter that your daughter is the last one to use the dress. It doesn't give her the right to destroy/alter it. She should have discussed it with your wife first, and then abide by whatever decision your wife made. She arbitrarily made a decision to ruin the dress. Not stay home. She might not even have been the last. What if there was a granddaughter that was especially close to her? Or she and Opie wanted to renew their vows and she used the dress? Opie is in no way not an a-hole here. Or God forbid she wanted to be buried in it, and her daughter just figuratively shouted all over it. The daughter ruined something her mother cherished because she wanted a better wedding dress. And why the heck didn't she ask? It's because the answer would have been no, and she's damn well aware of that. Don't be an Olivia. Not stay home. She tried the old ask forgiveness, not permission for a reason. This is clear by her being really nervous to show you the dress. I'd imagine she also showed you first so she could try to soften the blow to your wife. This was premeditated, which makes her an a-hole. Due to her not respecting you or your wife with her choice, I don't think you're in the wrong for pulling your support from the wedding. Tell her she already has your entire contribution in fabric. Not even an ounce of me thinks this wasn't calculated. The dress may be salvageable, but it won't be the same. It won't be OP's wife's dress, and the daughter just doesn't seem to care. She ruined something irreplaceable. She took what she thought was a calculated risk, but man, she's bad at math. Obviously not the a-hole, but the gall of the in-laws. They didn't butt in to be peacemakers for their soon-to-be daughter-in-law. I could appreciate that. No, they just wanted your money and openly admitted by suggesting low contact after. Olivia a-hole, in-laws a-holes, youngest probably just trying to help. You and your wife not the a-holes. Emotionally, it isn't the same, I know. But if you have all the pieces, a good seamstress can probably resemble it to look original. I got the original dress back, but not all of the pieces. Not without having Olivia take her dress apart. Best we could do is give a picture of what the dress used to look like and highlight the missing pieces to be remade. Now for the first update. Thank you everyone for the responses. My wife and I will look at more of them tomorrow and discuss the subject further. Just want to address a misconception. We have not gone low or no contact with Olivia. Her in-law suggested it, and that is insane. My wife's initial reaction to finding out Tuesday was not to go to the wedding. That was said in anger and not a done deal. It would probably depend a lot on Olivia's handling until then as well. Taking her dress she paid for would hurt our relationship with her, just as much as not paying for anything else. Which is why we are discussing our options and skimming comments for things we have not thought of and are doable. Now for the second update. My wife and I are reading as many comments as we can. She appreciates the concern and support. For those saying the dress wouldn't be worn again anyway, she has this to say. It's not about whether or not it would be worn again. If none of my children asked to wear it, I would still keep the dress for me. My mother taught me everything I know about sewing. We spent months picking out fabrics and doing trial and error on practice dresses as we made mine. It was mine. It was my one prized possession that held incredible memories for me. I've thought of having it put in my casket with me because once I'm gone, the person it mattered to is gone. However, I would have worn it again. Our 40th anniversary is in a couple years and I was very much looking forward to recreating our photos. It may seem like I'm choosing my dress over my daughter. I'm not. It is her deceit, indifference, and her blatant lack of remorse that I am hurt most by and having a hard time with. It is the underhanded ways she thought to address the issue. It is the fact she will not apologize and have a conversation with me, but is only worried about the rest of her wedding items being paid for and pinning it until after her honeymoon. I did not raise her to be like that. I would have loved to help her make designs for the dress she picked out if she had asked, and she knows this. I have never denied her help in her life, nor has our help come with conditions. Today we'll take my wife's dress to the seamstress that has the Franken dress to see what can be repaired. My wife has said the sash and train are most likely lost as the fabric of the gown was cut and the seams undone properly. Paraphrasing here, not up to sewing lingo. Unfortunately, even if it can be restored or parts of it, Olivia is currently not wanting to give up the dress after the wedding. She wants to keep hers and is imploring her mother to understand since she kept her wedding dress for so long. We don't want to lose our relationship with our daughter, but we both agreed there need to be consequences. And there isn't really any moving forward if Olivia isn't willing to budge on anything. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling off my son's camping trip after he ruined a painting that I drew for my wife? I, male 39, married my wife, female 36, 4 months ago. I have a son named Elijah, age 16. He and my wife have this tension between them that started right after she moved in with us. He complains about how she enters his room all the time and invading his privacy and touching his stuff, but my wife says she's just cleaning it for him. He also complains from being forced to eat what she cooks, but my wife says she's just trying to get him to step away from unhealthy fast food and snacks, and get used to healthy homemade meals. The fighting became constant even before the wedding. Then at the wedding, he complained about being excluded from pictures and food he wanted to have, but my wife said she had nothing to do with it, and that Elijah was looking for something to hold over her head. Now, since we're on summer break and he has plenty of free time, I signed him up for a 2-week camping trip and paid for everything. He was supposed to go next week, but a couple of days ago something happened. It was my wife's birthday. As a gift, I drew a painting for her and gave it to her during dinner. Elijah started laughing for no reason, which made my wife annoyed. She told him he wasn't allowed to watch a movie later that night and sent him to his room. He wasn't happy with us, and he threw a temper tantrum and said he didn't do anything to deserve a punishment. Then in the morning, my wife woke me up yelling, saying the painting I gave her was destroyed with car oil. She kept saying Elijah did it. So I went to his room, and he admitted that he ruined it to get back at her for punishing him the night before. I lost my temper with him, then punished him by canceling his trip and taking the money back. He threw another tantrum, saying he had to do that after she punished him for no reason, and that it wasn't fair since I promised. But I said it was final. He started crying and called his aunt as a way to pressure me into backing out of my decision, but I refused. Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. Your son has been telling you for years that your wife is overstepping, being intrusive, violating his privacy, and making him feel excluded from the family. And you did not one damn thing to help him. Instead, you took the side of the person who is treating him horribly every single time. You're an absolutely garbage father, and your son is going to dump you out of his life the minute he turns 18. My wife said was repeated several times. Is Opie even talking to his kid, or just listening to his wife? Since he is sleeping with his wife, I can answer that one for you. You're the a-hole. Your son is still a child and your wife is competing with him. First, she has no business parenting him. That's your job, not hers. Second, if he doesn't want her in his private space, that is his right. She has no right to invade it for cleaning or whatever else. Third, are you seriously trying to convince us that the bride had no say in wedding pictures? Fourth, you are a very bad parent for allowing all of this to happen without any reaction. Fifth, you guys need family therapy. And whenever your son accepts your wife or not, that is his business. The photographer asks for a list of photos you want taken with people and then you pick the ones you want. So saying she had nothing to do with it is garbage. Literally did this myself last night for my own upcoming wedding. Can confirm. The couple has full control over who gets their picture taken and when. If he doesn't want your wife going into his room and touching his things, why do you let her? Why didn't you make sure that your son was included in some pictures? Why didn't you intervene when he wasn't allowed to eat some of the food at the wedding? Why are you letting her parent your son when you know there's so much tension between them? Of course, he shouldn't have ruined the painting. Of course, he's an a-hole. But he's also a kid. You and your wife are, supposedly, the adults. It's unreasonable to expect a 16-year-old to de-escalate a situation that the two adults keep escalating. Everyone sucks here, but you in particular. I'm the bio mom, and I never went in my son's room without his knowledge or consent by that age. Laundry day? Just ask him to put the sheets in the laundry so I could wash them. If his clothes didn't make it to the laundry basket in time for washing, I taught him how to do his own. Stepmom needs to stay out of this young man's room. That is the a-hole. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for suggesting he has absolutely nothing to offer me? 30 female and I've been with my fiancé 29 male for 4 years now. We both came from absolutely nothing. Both grew up in foster care. Both had essentially nothing growing up and lived in poverty. I saw this as an opportunity for growth and breaking the cycle. So I save up and work my way towards a better life. Whereas he immediately spends his money on material things that he didn't have the opportunity to possess as a child/teenager. He is super materialistic, and I'm not like that. I like simplicity while he likes extraordinary. With that said, the material items he does currently have hold no value to me whatsoever. It's his enjoyment. Like a bunch of guitars, easily over 40, and recording equipment, and I don't play an instrument/have no use for them. Or he has a bunch of gaming PCs/computers/consoles or just electronics in general, and I'm not a gamer/electronics type of woman. I enjoy my books, paperback, old school style, and have more than I probably should. So, we are completely different people and I love that about us. It does make things exciting, though I simply don't understand his need for all of these things. When we started planning for our wedding roughly 2 months ago, it started getting really fidgety and kind of weird, so I just stopped talking about it. I figured it was him getting anxious about the whole thing because he was always the type who said he didn't want marriage. It's just a piece of paper. He knew I did want marriage, so he proposed. I didn't think he ever would and never pushed the subject. I was super taken aback by it because I never thought that would happen. So anyways, he gets weird. I stopped talking about the planning because I didn't want to push it and scare him off. But a few days later, he says he wants to talk and brings up me signing a prenup. Which that in itself didn't really bother me because, well, to be frank, I have much more than him, and it would safeguard me. But then he made a comment, not trying to be a prick I don't think, saying, I don't want to lose all my stuff if we ever divorce. This is what angered me, because, well, now you're insinuating that I'm that type of woman after everything. And knowing that I am a very simplistic person who has no desire for material things. So I get a little heated, nothing extreme, and say, what exactly do you have to offer me in the event of a divorce? Your guitars that I don't want? Your electronics that I have no use for? I don't want your things. He immediately deadpans me and says, I can't freaking believe you would make out like I have nothing to offer. The truth of the matter though is that I have much more to offer financially. I would be the one losing in the end. I have a business, I own my home, I have a hefty bank account, while he has barely $9,000 saved and jumps from job to job. Am I the a-hole for suggesting he has nothing to offer me? So the dude brings the subject up, insinuating you would try to take his stuff, then gets angry when you say he has nothing you want? You are not the a-hole. He absolutely is. And you should consider that a red flag and be on the lookout for more. Those red flags are included in the prenup. She should get the prenup to protect her assets. And at that point where he sees that he gets nothing, he'll probably try and talk her out of it. Prenup, prenup, prenup. Have your attorney in on the making of this document. You need to be well represented because from where I sit, you have the most to lose. And just a guess here, but when he sees your asset list, he will say, oh, prenup? We don't need no prenup, babe. Get the prenup. Otherwise, you're the a-hole to yourself. You might also consider couples premarital counseling and a sit down with a financial planner to help work out how you and he will handle shared financial responsibilities. Good luck. I think you're looking at this from the wrong angle. If you're the saver in the relationship, he will profit from you in a divorce. Get a prenup to protect yourself from his spending. OP recognizes this. What OP doesn't recognize is the fact that her fiancé really doesn't want to get married. That is the largest red flag out there. Yes, he never wanted to get married. He proposed out of nowhere and is now manufacturing a big argument that's well known to be a relationship killer. Sounds like he feels trapped and is gnawing off his own foot now. OP, you need to rethink being in a relationship with someone who doesn't share the same goals/values as you. I don't mean about different hobbies, but you and your partner have vastly different ideas about money and marriage, and your communication needs work too. You're not the a-hole for getting offended by what he said, but you're taking the low road and you need to pull up fast. Get premarital counseling. You need to discuss all the issues you're not on the same page with your partner on instead of pretending it all worked out.